Every afternoon, he climbed 6 flights of rusted stairs just to finish his homework. But one day, a dog was waiting for him mangy, trembling, and loyal beyond reason. They say Wi-Fi is everywhere, but not where it matters most. Sometimes a stray finds you when you are the one who has been left behind. And sometimes, the thing you need most has 4 legs and nowhere else to go. Part 1. The Rooftop Signal. The dog did not bark the first time Luz Mendez saw him. He just sat there on the concrete rooftop, under the bent metal satellite dish, his ribs showing like tree roots breaking through the dirt. His eyes one clouded gray, the other a deep, watching brown followed Lewis as if he were someone worth noticing. Lewis hesitated, notebook in hand, Chromebook zipped in a second-hand case. "You lost?" he asked the dog. The dog did not answer, just let out a slow sigh and put his head on his paws, as if he would already made up his mind. This is home now. Lewis did not know it yet, but that rooftop, the cracked top of Building 3 of the El Monte Vista Apartments in Brownsville, Texas, was about to become something more than a signal spot. It was 2020, deep into the pandemic. 10-year-old Luz Mendez knew how to find stillness. His world was filled with empty classrooms, quiet buses, his ma'am whispering on the phone about back rent while stirring arroz con leche so he would not hear. He climbed the fire escape ladder every afternoon after lunch, carrying his borrowed school-issued Chromebook like it was made of glass. Up there, the city's free Wi-Fi just barely reached. If he sat cross-legged near the far corner, past the broken vent, the connection bars would flicker just long enough for him to upload his homework. The day the dog showed up, Luz had a spelling test to finish. Necessary, he typed slowly, sweat running down his back. Embarrassment. Misunderstanding. The dog did not move for an hour. At one point, the sky rumbled, the wind shifted. Luz looked over. Still there. Still watching. "Go on, get," he said quietly, not really meaning it. But the dog just blinked. The next day, he was back. Same spot. Same silence. Lewis brought a slice of tortillas smeared with canned beans in a napkin. The dog sniffed it once, then turned his head. "Too proud," Lewis mumbled, more to himself than the dog. The dog stared at him again with that same haunted eye. There was something familiar about it, though Lewis could not name what. Not yet. He finished his reading quiz while the dog curled up just 3 feet away, tail twitching with every gust of wind. That Friday, after class, Lewis asked his ma'am, Rosa Mendez, if they had any leftover rice. She gave him a look. "You already eat. It is for a dog," he said, a skinny one. She did not ask, just handed him the dented pot from the fridge, its contents scraped together from 2 nights of leftovers. "Don't bring no strays in this house, Luisito," she warned, her voice not angry, just tired. "I know." The dog's fur was a patchwork of dirt and memory. Once, it might have been golden. Now, it was sun-bleached and matted, with burrs clinging to his hind legs and a chunk missing from one ear. He moved like an old man on bad knees. Lewis guessed he was maybe a muddle little lab, maybe some shepherd, and a lot of the in-between. He began calling him Virgil after a name he would seen in a mythology unit at school. Virgil guided people through hard places, Lewis whispered one day while writing his essay. "Maybe you are doing that too." Virgil did not answer, but he stayed. The apartment rooftop was hot, loud with the hum of generators and the occasional shouts from kids in neighboring buildings. Below, the city buzzed with traffic and construction, but up top, it felt like time waited. Lewis started packing extra food. Little things: a chicken bone, half a sandwich, stale crackers. Virgil never begged. He simply sat, and sometimes leaned gently against Louis's shoulder. Just enough to be felt. Not enough to ask for more. They became a strange kind of pair, the boy with too much silence in his life, and the dog with no one left to miss him. It was not until 2 weeks later that the man in the white truck came asking questions. "Hey kid," he called up as Louis was coming down the fire escape, Chromebook slung over his shoulder. "You see a tan dog up there? One with a limp." Louis froze. The man wore a faded shirt with a company logo Louis did not recognize, some kind of security firm. He had a clipboard, and the kind of voice adults use when they have already decided not to listen to what you will say. "He do not belong to nobody now," Louis said carefully. The man snorted. "Belonged to one of our guards. Guy left for El Paso. Didn't he take him?" "He left him up there?" Louis asked, incredulous. "Didn't he say where?" "Guess the dog wandered off. That guy fed him scraps for months during night shifts. Guess he just stuck around the building." Louis felt heat rise behind his eyes, but he nodded. "He is okay up there." "Well, if he gives you trouble, call animal control." Louis said nothing. He watched the truck pull away and then climbed slowly back to the roof, where Virgil was waiting, tail thumping once. He knelt beside him. "You got left too, huh?" Virgil did not move, just leaned in. On the Monday after, a local reporter, Sophia Reyes from Valley Echo, was visiting the building to write a piece on broadband inequality. She spotted Louis on the roof from the parking lot. Small figure. Glowing screen, a dog pressed close, paper bag of snacks beside him. She raised her phone, snapped a photo. That image would go viral within the week. But for now, Louis had no idea the world had seen them. He just finished his science worksheet on plant respiration and closed the lid of his laptop. The sun was setting, bathing the rooftop in copper and shadow. Virgil was already asleep, head on his paws, one ear twitching. Louis reached into his backpack and pulled out the drawing he had been working on crayon on notebook paper, smudged and folded. It showed a boy and a dog on a rooftop under a starry sky. No faces, just outlines, like they belonged to each other without needing to explain how. He tucked it under his Chromebook. "Tomorrow's spelling words," he whispered. "Rescue, abandonment, loyalty." The wind picked up, and Virgil stirred. Part 2. The photograph. Luis Mendez did not notice the woman standing near the dumpster with a camera phone. He did not know her name was Sophia Reyes. Didn't know she worked for the Valley Echo. Did to know her nephew, Carlos, went to his school, or that she would driven past El Monte Vista that afternoon, because her editor wanted a real face to put on the article about kids without internet. All he knew was that Virgil had stopped eating again, and that worried him more than anything. "Come on, Vijo," Louis said softly, setting down a slice of tortilla with a scoop of scrambled eggs. "You used to love this." Virgil sniffed it, licked once, and turned his head away. Louis frowned. "You can be done already." Virgil stood, paced in a slow half circle, and lay back down beside Louis' crossed legs. His breathing was heavier now. It rattled a little. He coughed in his sleep sometimes, like there was gravel in his chest. Louis did not have a vet. He did not have a car. He did not even have a decent backpack for school. But he had a dog now, and that meant something. Sophia Reyes did not plan to take the photo. She saw the boy first skinny, hunched, wearing a too big shirt and a focused expression. The sun hid his cheekbones, casting a soft outline of dust and determination. He did not see her. He was typing, shoulders drawn in, his hands moving carefully over the keyboard. The dog lay next to him, motionless, except for the flick of a tired tail. It was not the technology story she would come to write, but it was the story she knew her readers would feel. She snapped the photo quickly, from across the lot, Then she looked again. That was not just a dog and a kid. That was something else, something deeper. Something about loyalty. Waiting. Something about the things we do to stay connected. That night, Louis came down from the roof with an uneaten tortilla still in his bag. Rosa was on the couch, watching the evening news, one hand resting on a heating pad for her back. "You late," she said, not looking away from the screen. "Had to finish science." "You finish it?" Louis nodded. "And spelling? You remember the forms for the school Wi-Fi list? They said we are still waitlisted." Rosa sighed, tired. Of course. Louis sat beside her, trying not to slump. She smelled like cinnamon and tiger balm. He wanted to tell her about Virgil's cough, but he was not sure how. She had not even asked about the leftovers. So instead, he said quietly, "He is not eating." She looked at him then. "Who?" He paused. "Nobody." The next morning, Louis woke to the buzz of his mother's phone on the kitchen counter. She tapped it once, froze. Tapped again. "Louisado?" She called. He came out rubbing his eyes, still in pajama pants. "You were on the news." "What?" She turned the screen toward him. There, on a local Facebook post, was the photo. A boy on a rooftop, a mangy dog at his side. The caption read, "When Wi-Fi is a luxury and loyalty sleeps beside you." Louis blinked. That is us. They tagged the school. The news picked it up. He leaned in closer. Luis Mendez, age 10, walks 6 flights daily to access Brownsville's spotty public internet. He is not alone. An abandoned stray dog, now nicknamed Virgil by Louis, joins him every day. The city's digital divide is not just statistic. It is a boy, and a dog, and a broken system. The phone rang twice that day. First, it was the principal, then someone from the mayor's office. Then came the donations. By evening, Louis' photo had been shared 3,000 times. Someone started a fundraiser. People from New York, California, even Oklahoma donated. Messages poured in. A woman offered to sponsor Louis' internet. A local tech startup pledged to install free Wi-Fi for the entire El Monte Vista complex within a month. A veterinarian emailed Rosa directly offering to examine Virgil at no cost. But Louis did not care about any of that until he heard the words, "We will help the dog." They brought Virgil down in a blanket-lined laundry basket. Louis held one, sighed. His ma'am the other. The dog's breath wheezed with every bump of the stairs. The veterinarian met them in a van outside. She had kind eyes and moved gently, always talking to Virgil like he was someone's grandfather. "He is old," she said, placing a stethoscope to his chest. "And I mean old. Maybe 12. Maybe more." Louis nodded, swallowing a lump. "He has got bronchitis. Maybe some early kidney issues, but he is strong. He has been surviving alone a long time. That takes heart." She paused, glancing at Louis. "He has got one more good chapter left in him. If we treat him right." Louis said, quietly, "He stayed with me when no one else did." Tran smiled. "Then I guess it is his turn to be taken care of." The next week was a blur. The school threw an assembly. The mayor gave a speech. Louis stood there, stiff in a collared shirt someone had donated, holding Virgil's leash like it was a lifeline. A 5th grader clapped too hard and scared the dog. Louis bent to pet him. Virgil stayed calm. "Who is the mascot?" someone called out. "The dog." Another yelled. By the end of the day, they would voted. Unanimous. Virgil the rooftop dog became Virgil the bobcat, mascot of Monte Vista Elementary. But later that night, back in the quiet of their apartment, Louis sat cross-legged on the floor, sketching, Not a boy and a dog this time. This time, it was a rooftop, and a dog alone. Waiting. He stared at it for a long while. Then, with a trembling hand, he wrote a single word in the bottom corner. Loyalty. And behind him, on the blanket near the foot of his bed, Virgil let out a breathy sigh and fell asleep. Part 3, 1 bar of signal. It was strange, watching people celebrate something that had never felt like a choice. Luz Mendez had not set out to become a symbol. He would just needed a signal. But now, posters of him and Virgil were up in the school hallway drawn by the 8th grade art class. Someone had even photoshopped a tiny superhero cape on Virgil, and the dog's crinkled ear had been turned into a badge of honor. El Capitan Conexon, they called him. Lewis did not know how to feel about any of it. He still walked up to the roof. Sometimes, even though they had Wi-Fi now in the apartment, even though his mother did not like it, even though the building manager said the city was talking about locking the stairwell. But the roof was not about Wi-Fi anymore. It was about quiet. And Virgil. Virgil walked slower than he had just a week earlier. The antibiotics helped some, but his body carried old burdens. A limp in his back leg, a scar beneath his ribs, and a weariness that never left his eyes. Louis did not ask questions about what Virgil had gone through before they met. He understood what it meant to have stories you did not want to tell. People are weird now. Louis whispered to him one afternoon as they sat under the rusted satellite dish. Like I am a news thing. Like I am lucky. Virgil rested his head on Louis' knee. I do not feel lucky. Wind stirred the corner of Louis' homework packet. Virgil's ear flicked once. Louis stared at the skyline cheap motels. Strip malls. A billboard for a phone plan nobody in his building could afford. They keep talking about the Wi-Fi. He said, but nobody asks if I am lonely. Virgil sighed, deep and soft, like he knew. That weekend, the fundraiser organizers sent over a box of gifts. There was a school supply kit, a pack of socks, a refurbished tablet, and a note that read, "Keep climbing. Louis." Louis opened it, stared, then quietly closed it again. What do they think this is? Rosa asked. Folding laundry at the table. A charity contest. Louise shrugged. They are trying. Trying to feel better. She muttered. Not the same thing. She looked at her son. Eyes softening. You are not a cause. Louisido, you are a boy. Louis nodded. But it did not help the knot in his chest. He slipped the tablet back into its bubble wrap and slid it under his bed. The next Monday, Virgil did not want to move. Louis found him curled up on the bath mat, nodding. Exactly. Just tired. He licked Louis' hand but did not lift his head. Louis sat with him for a while. Skipping breakfast. When his ma'am came in, she did not scold him, just ran her fingers through his hair and said, "You will be late." He did not answer. She stood a moment longer, then added, gently, "He knows you are here." That day at school, Louis did not hear much of the lessons. The words swam past him fractions. A compound subjects. Proper nouns. During lunch, Carlos Reyes sat down across from him with his pudding cup already half open. Your dog okay? Louise shrugged. Old. Carlos nodded. My Tio says dogs do not get scared of dying. They just know when it is time. Louis looked up. Your Tio the vet. Nah. Carlos said. The one who fixes water heaters. After school, Louis did not climb the roof. He went straight home, dropped his backpack, and knelt beside the bath mat. Virgil opened one eye, the cloudy one. The other stayed closed. I hear. Louis whispered, we do not have to go anywhere. The dog's chest rose and fell, slow and steady. Louis pulled the old blanket off his bed, folded it twice, and tucked it around the dog's side. Then he curled up beside him on the tile. And that is how Rosa found them an hour later, her son with his cheek pressed to the floor, one arm over a dying dog. She did not say a word. She just sank down beside them and stayed. That night, Louis dreamed of the roof. He dreamed of stars, so close they made the sky look wrinkled. He dreamed of Virgil standing tall again, ears perked, coat shining like honey in the moonlight. He dreamed they were both chasing something, maybe a signal, maybe a memory. He did not know, but it felt like going home. Virgil died just before dawn, quietly. No sound. Louis did not know exactly when, but when he woke, the dog's chest was not moving. He did not cry at first. He just sat, held Virgil's paw, and breathed for both of them. By morning, word had spread. The school counselor left a voicemail. Sophia Reyes emailed a heartfelt message. Kids drew cards. The Pete offered to cover costs, though there was not much to cover. Louis did not want any of it. He just wanted to carry the blanket wrap bundle one more time up the stairs. 6 flights. Back to the place where they would met. I will bring him down after, he told his ma'am. But she shook her head. Would you? You will stay. I will come with you. And together, they climbed. Louis laid Virgil on the sun-warmed concrete. The wind was light. The city below buzzed softly, like a hum between dreams. He set the drawing beside him, the first one he would ever made. The one with the boy and the dog under the stars. The edges were worn now, but it still looked true. I did not find him. Louis whispered, he found me. Rosa nodded and put her hand on his shoulder. For a long time, they just stood there, watching the sky. And somewhere below, the Wi-Fi signal was stronger than ever. But up here, Louis knew. He had already found what mattered. Part 4, the signal he left behind. They buried Virgil at the edge of a community garden that barely qualified as such, just a fenced-off patch of land behind the parking lot with one lemon tree, some withered aloe, and a broken bench half swallowed by weeds. Louis and Rosa went early. Before school, before the sun got too high, before the world had time to wake up and notice grief. Rosa wrapped the blanket tighter and held it like a swaddled child. Louis carried the small garden spade they borrowed from the neighbor across the hall. He dug in silence. His hands blistered quickly, but he did not stop. Some things you do with your own 2 hands, or not at all. By mid-morning, the grave was no deeper than 1.5 feet. The earth was dry, packed tight with stones and old bottle caps. Rosa offered to finish the job, but Louis shook his head. When the hole was finally ready, he knelt and placed Virgil gently inside. No box, no collar, just the blanket, and the folded drawing Louis had redrawn the night before, this time with stars that looked like they were weeping. Smoothed the soil back over, slow and careful, like tucking someone in for the last time. He did not cry until he was alone again. It came fast, sudden, a choking kind of grief. He curled into himself at the base of the lemon tree and let the tears take over. He did not remember much of that hour, just the sound of birds, and how the wind kept lifting the edges of Virgil's sold food bowl, still sitting near the bench like it was waiting for its owner to come back. Later that week, the school counselor, Alvarez, asked if he wanted to talk about it. Louis said no. Do you want to write about him? She offered gently. Or draw? Louis considered it. Maybe later. Grief has its own schedule. She said. No rush. He nodded. But inside, the word grief did not feel right. It sounded too clean, too adult. What he felt was not tidy or soft. It was jagged, lonely, like looking for a signal and getting nothing but static. On Friday, Louis went back up to the roof. He brought nothing with him. No Chromebook. No backpack. Just a leftover slice of tortilla and the old dish Virgil used to ignore. He set it down in the exact same spot just to see. Then he sat beside it, cross-legged, facing the sky. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. And then he saw them. 2 kids in building 2 across the alley, brothers. Maybe both kneeling on their rooftop, laptops in front of them. One looked over, saw Louis, and gave a little wave. Louis waved back. And suddenly, the rooftop was not just his anymore. That weekend, the Wi-Fi installation team came. They wore neon vests and carried rolls of cable like fire hoses. They worked fast, sweating through their shirts, installing routers and extenders on every floor. Louis sat on the steps and watched them, Virgil's bowl still in his lap. One of the workers, a young guy named Jonah, noticed. "You the rooftop kid?" he asked. Louis nodded. Jonah grinned. "Heard you had a bodyguard up there." Lou smiled, first time in days. "Yeah? He retired, but he was a good one. The best." Jonah paused, then pointed to the bowl. "Wanna hang that somewhere? We could mount it on the wall, like a plaque or something." Louis looked down at the metal dish. Scratched, bent, but it meant something now. He nodded. "Yeah? Right here on the stairwell landing, so he can still watch the door." By Monday, the internet was strong. Really strong. Not just in Louis' apartment, but in every corner of Elmont Vista. Kids started doing homework on balconies. Adults used it to job search. Grandparents made video calls. Even the building manager admitted it felt like something had shifted. And in the stairwell between the 5th and 6th floors, someone had scribbled in blue marker just below Virgil's mounted dish. "Loyalty leaves a signal stronger than Wi-Fi." No one claimed it. No one erased it. Louis touched the edge of the bowl every time he passed. Just once. Just enough to say, "I still remember." At school, things changed too. Carlos started saving him a seat at lunch. Alvarez asked him to help design a mural with the art class. The principal asked if he would be the honorary tech ambassador for a community event. "I do not know anything about tech," Louis said. "You know about what happens when people do not have it," the principal replied. "That is even better." Louis shrugged, trying to play it cool. But the words stayed with him. That afternoon, Rosa made albondiga soup, real ones, with fresh cilantro and soft carrots. She set the bowl in front of him, brushing the hair from his forehead. "You are still quiet," she said. Louis sipped the broth. "I just miss him." "I know." They sat in silence. Then she reached under the counter and placed a small, cloth-bound notebook beside his bowl. "What is this?" "I found it at the market," she said. "You said you might want to draw again." Louis opened it. The first page was blank, but the second had a single sticky note in her handwriting. "He stayed beside you. Now you carry him." Louis stared at the words, then picked up his pencil and started to draw. The first page, a boy on a rooftop, bowl at his feet, an old dog resting beneath the stars, watching over the city. And just beneath the sketch, in careful letters, "Some signals never fade. Part 5, what you leave behind." Luis Mendez did not speak much during the mural ceremony. He stood near the far end of the gym wall, hands tucked in his pockets, while the others clapped and took photos. But when the tarp finally dropped, revealing the painted rooftop scene, Virgil lying beside him under a sky of swirling stars, something deep inside him gave way. It was not sadness. Exactly. It was something older. Something like honor. The mural was the art class idea. but they asked Louis to help design it. He drew from memory where the crack ran across the roof like a scar, where the satellite dish leaned like a tired shoulder, where Virgil always curled close without needing to be asked. The final piece showed him just as Louis remembered, alert, quiet, waiting for nothing and everything all at once. Carlos slapped him on the back when the applause faded. "Dude, that looks epic." Louis smiled. They got his eyes right. They got everything right. Even your messed up shoes. Louis looked down. His right shoelace was frayed. The left sole had peeled away slightly, flapping with every step. Carlos nudged him. "Somebody's gonna see that and think, and dang, that dog must be loved that kid." Louis nodded. He did, back at Elmont Vista. The changes were piling up like letters on the welcome mat. The city had sent volunteers to repaint stairwells and repair the broken playground swing. College group donated used laptops. And someone no one knew who left bags of dog food every week at the garden gate where Virgil was buried. Louis started watering the lemon tree each morning before school. He did not talk about it, he just did it. Some things do not need to be explained. One evening, Rosa brought home a stack of mail. One envelope was different bright blue, with handwriting instead of a printed label. Louis opened it slowly. Inside was a letter from a woman in Nebraska. She would read about him in the Valley Echo, then again in a local paper that picked up the story. "My husband passed away in February." It read, "He used to walk our dog Charlie every morning at 6 since he has been gone. I still wake up at that time. But I sit by the window now, wondering if Charlie feels it too. Your story reminded me that love's not disappear, it just finds new forms." At the bottom, she would drawn a tiny sketch of Charlie, ears too big for his head, tail curved like a question mark. Louis stared at it for a long time. Then he folded the letter and tucked it in his new notebook, behind his latest drawing. Virgil beneath the lemon tree, the dish mounted on the wall, and a boy kneeling, watering the roots. That weekend, Rosa asked him if he wanted to go to the shelter, just to visit. She added, "No pressure." Louis hesitated. "I do not want to replace him." "You are not," she said gently, "but you do have room." The shelter smelled like bleach and wet fur. A chorus of barks echoed through the kennels. Some eager, some terrified. Louis walked slowly, peering into each enclosure. A gray terrier barked so hard he fell over. A three-legged mutt licked the glass. A yellow puppy yawned and immediately fell asleep again. But none of them felt right, until the very last cage. A skinny black and white dog with one floppy ear, and a missing patch of fur above her right eye. She did not bark. She just watched him quietly, tilting her head as if trying to remember something long forgotten. "She has been here a while," the attendant said. "No name on record. We just call her Dot." Louis knelt. The dog leaned forward slowly, touched her nose to the bars, and let out a slow, gravelly sigh. Louis exhaled. "Too. She is not Virgil," he told his ma'am in the car. Rosa said, "She is Dot." Louis looked at the passenger seat, where the dog lay curled on a towel, too tired to stand but not afraid. "She can stay with me," he said, "if she wants." Rosa smiled. "Looks like she already decided." That night, Louis brought out the food bowl. He filled it half full and set it down on the tile. Dot limped over, sniffed once, then began to eat soft, slow bites, the kind that say thank you without needing words. Louis sat beside her, one hand resting on the cool floor. Above them, the Wi-Fi signal blinked green. Steady, strong, unbroken. Before bed, he opened the notebook. He added a new sketch. This one showed two dogs. One curled beneath a tree, the other standing beside a boy at the top of a long stairwell, and beneath it, he wrote, "Loyalty is not something you lose. It is something you carry forward." Part 6: The Dog Bowl and the Lemon Tree. Dot did not sleep like Virgil. Virgil had been quiet, still like an old man who knew his dreams by heart. But Dot twitched in her sleep. She barked at shadows. She kicked her legs like she was running somewhere she would once been. Louis did not mind. He understood what it meant to be chased by memories. On the first day of spring, Dot followed Louis up to the rooftop. Her steps were slow, cautious. The fire escape creaked beneath them, but she did not flinch. When they reached the top, she paused, nose in the air, tail stiff. Louis waited. "It okay?" he whispered. "You are allowed." The city stretched before them like always dry grass. Concrete sprawl, the occasional pickup rumbling below. But something felt different now, not because of Dot, because Louis was different. He set down the bowl in its usual spot. Dot walked a full circle around the rooftop before lying beside him, not on top of his feet like Virgil used to, but close enough to touch. Louis took out his notebook and began to sketch. This time, it was her, and as he drew, he spoke softly not to Dot, but to Virgil, wherever he might be. "I think she is going to be okay," he said. "I think I might be, too." That afternoon, Louis stopped by the garden behind the parking lot. He had not visited since the burial. The lemon tree had new buds, green and pale yellow, still small but promising. A few bees drifted lazily from bloom to bloom. At the base of the tree, the mound of earth he would raised for Virgil Hess' grave had softened into the soil. No longer obvious unless you knew what to look for. Someone had placed a painted stone at the head of the grave. It read, "Thank you, Rooftop Dog." Louis smiled, brushing dirt from the letters. Then he knelt and placed his hand on the ground. It was not a prayer exactly, just a moment. A stillness. When he rose to leave, he noticed something odd. Dot was not with him. He found her a few minutes later, standing near the mounted bowl in the stairwell. She was not sniffing it or pawing at it. She was just looking. Head tilted, one ear twitching, Louis stood quietly, watching. And then she did something he had not expected. She sat down, right beneath the bowl, just like Virgil used to, and for a moment, Louis felt a wave of something so deep it almost knocked him off balance. Not grief, not even sadness, just memory, blooming like lemons in spring. At school, the mural sparked more than just praise. The principal announced an every voice essay contest, asking students to write about moments they felt seen or forgotten. Louis did not know if he would enter. Writing was not his favorite, but the prompt stayed with him. When did I feel seen? The answer was not a moment. It was a presence. Virgil on the roof, Dot in the stairwell, his ma'am at the stove, saving the best piece of meat without saying why. Maybe, he thought, it was not about being seen. Maybe it was about being remembered. That night, he sat at the kitchen table, chewing the end of a pencil. Dot lay under his chair, sighing now and then. Finally, he flipped to a blank page in his notebook and began to write. He did not bark, he did not beg, he just showed up and stayed. That is how you know someone's worth trusting. Not because they promise things, but because they do not leave even when there is nothing in it for them. Virgil did not know I was a news story. He did not care that I had no signal. He just knew I needed someone. And now, I think I know why people keep writing to me. They see something in that photo, something they forgot they needed. A reason to believe loyalty still matters. Rosa read the essay over his shoulder when he was done. She said nothing for a while, just pulled him into a hug. Maybe you should enter. She whispered. Louis looked at Dot, then at the bowl on the wall, then back to his notebook. I think I already did. At the end of the week, a truck pulled into the El Monte Vista lot with no announcement and no press. It carried a small bronze plaque, paid for by anonymous donors. The maintenance crew mounted it beside the garden fence. Louis stood beside it with Dot at his feet. The plaque read, "In memory of Virgil, the rooftop dog. He kept watch through the silence. He brought signal where there was none. He reminded us that love does not need words to be heard." Louis touched the cool metal, then bent to scratch behind Dot's ear. "I think he would like this," he said. Dot licked his hand, once, then rested her head on his knee. The sky above was full of wind and gulls. The Wi-Fi signal blinked steady green through the apartment windows. And on the rooftop, a new story waited to be told. Part 7: What Carries Us Forward. 2 weeks after the plaque went up, the neighborhood started calling it Virgil's garden. It was not a garden, not really, just a narrow lot with some scraggly herbs, the lemon tree, and a handful of hand-painted rocks that kids had started sneaking in after school. But something had changed. People walked a little slower past the fence. Someone added a chipped ceramic bench. A wind chime showed up one morning, made of bent spoons and keys. Louis visited every few days, sometimes with Dot, sometimes alone, always with something in his pocket: an eraser, a folded sketch, half a sandwich wrapped in wax paper. Little offerings, like he was still trying to say thank you in a language the earth might understand. At school, the mural was no longer new. Kids walked past it without staring now. The novelty had faded, but something deeper had settled in its place, a quiet kind of respect. Even the kids who used to ignore Louis now nodded when they passed him in the hall. One of the second graders called him the dog boy, but not in a mean way. It almost sounded like a title. Louis did not mind. Virgil had earned that. Then came the essay contest results. Alvarez called him into the front office before first period. "You won," she said, beaming. Louis blinked. "What?" "First place. District-wide." She handed him a folder with a certificate, a letter from the school board, and a gift card to a local bookstore. "They said your piece made the judges cry." Louis looked down at the envelope. His name was printed in bold. A block letters. Luis Mendez. The dog on the Wi-Fi roof. They published the essay in the school newsletter. They read it aloud at the next meeting. The librarian made a little display with a cardboard rooftop and tiny cutouts of a dog and a bowl. Louis felt proud, but not the way he expected. Not like he would won something. More like he would return something that never really belongs to him. At home that night, Rosa put the certificate in a dollar store frame and hung it near the kitchen table. Dot sniffed it once and sneezed. Louis laughed. "She says I am getting a big head." Rosa smiled. "Maybe just a big heart." The bookstore gift card sat untouched for a few days. Louis did not know what to buy. He would never picked out a brand new book before. Most of his books came from the swap shelf at the laundromat or a milk crate someone left out after moving. Eventually, Rosa took him to the book nest on Boca Chica Boulevard. The bell above the door jingled like in the movies. Louis wandered slowly, touching the spines, feeling the weight of stories. In the back corner, he found a slim hardcover with a blue dog on the front. "Sounder," it said. He turned the first few pages. By the second paragraph, he was gone somewhere else. A porch, a boy, a dog who meant everything. He clutched the book to his chest like it might disappear. At the register, Rosa added a sketch pad and a new set of pencils. "Early birthday," she whispered. Louis did not argue. That night, He drew long past bedtime. Dot curled at his feet, belly full, tail twitching in her sleep. Louis sketched Sounder first, then Virgil, then a dog that was somehow both. He added rooftops and stairwells, bowls and stars, a boy with tired eyes and a backpack full of questions. And when he was done, he turned to a clean page. This one was for Dot. He drew her sitting beneath the mounted dish, eyes alert. One ear flopped forward like she was listening to some secret frequency no one else could hear. Underneath it, he wrote, she heard the call of the rooftop, too. By the end of April, the school announced a new annual tradition. The principal stood in front of the mural during morning assembly and raised a small silver bowl engraved and newly polished. This, she said, is the Virgil Bowl. Each year, we will give it to a student who brings quiet strength to our community. Not loud achievements, not shiny trophies, but kindness, consistency, presence. Louis felt his heart thump. Carlos elbowed him. You know that is yours, right? Louis shrugged. I am just glad they remembered him. When his name was called, the applause was loud but not overwhelming. He walked forward with Dot on a short leash, her new red banana fluttering at her neck. She did not bark or pull. She just walked beside him, ears high, eyes scanning the crowd like she was keeping guard. He accepted the bowl. It was lighter than it looked, but he felt the weight of it anyway. He held it up once, then looked to the mural. Virgil's eyes seemed to glow a little under the gym lights. Louis whispered, still with me, and maybe he was, in every dish filled, in every signal found, in every quiet rooftop under a waiting sky. Part 8. Dot at the gate. Dot had been with Louis for 3 months when she finally barked. It was early summer. The air was thick with the kind of heat that made the pavement shimmer. Louis was on the front steps tying his shoe, when Dot stood up from her patch of shade under the stairwell and let out a low, sharp bark once. Then again. He looked up, startled. Dot's ears were forward, her body still, but alert. Not scared. Focused. Across the lot, a man in a blue maintenance uniform had dropped a crate of extension cords. He paused, smiled at her, and waved. That is our new tech guy, Rosa said, appearing behind him with a basket of laundry. Installing routers in the next building. Louis patted Dot's side. She is not used to strangers. Neither were you. Once. Louis grinned. Still not. Later that day, Dot barked again, this time at the garden gate. Louis had gone out to water the lemon tree. He brought a little bucket of kitchen scraps for the compost bin, and a bottle cap with a ladybug floating inside, something he meant to draw later. He was on his knees, pulling weeds from around the grave, when Dot growled, then barked louder, sharper than before. Louis stood up fast. There was a girl at the fence, maybe 7 or 8, tall for her age, with flyaway braids and a purple folder pressed to her chest like a shield. She did not flinch when Dot barked. Just waited. Quiet. You need something? Louis asked. I read your essay, the girl said. The one about the dog. We got it in class. Louis blinked. At your school? Yeah? They said you were from here. My cousin lives in Building 5. I am visiting for the summer. Dot gave a low whine. Still watching. I wanted to see the grave, the girl said, if that is okay. Louis hesitated, then opened the gate. Come on in, he said. Her name was Jordan. She wore worn-out sneakers and carried 3 pencils in her pocket. She knelt without being asked and placed her folder down gently near the lemon tree. I never met him, she said, but I thought he might like this. She unfolded a sheet of lined paper, revealing a drawing of a dog and a boy under a night sky, stars shaped like hearts. Louis stared at it. The style was shaky, but the feeling was clear. "You draw." "Sometimes," she said, "mostly when I am mad." Louis nodded. "That is a good reason." Dot circled once, then sat between them. "Is this your new dog?" Louis nodded. "Her name is Dot. She does not look new. She looks like she has been here forever." Louis smiled. "Yeah?" "She does." They sat together for half an hour. Saying little, Dot stayed close, her tail sweeping slow arcs in the dirt. When Jordan left, she gave Louis the drawing. "You should keep it," she said, "for the notebook." He did, and later that night, he added a line beneath it. "Some people bring flowers. Some bring memory." The next day, Louis brought Dot to the rooftop again. The air was heavy, a storm rolling in from the Gulf. The sky looked like bruised cotton. Dot sniffed every corner. She sat beside the dish for a long time, looking out over the city like she had something to say. Louis sat with her. He pulled out his sketchbook and began to draw without thinking. Dot. The rooftop, the storm in the distance. But when he shaded the sky, he added something else. A second dish, a little smaller, beside the first, one for Virgil, one for Dot. He stared at the image, heart thumping. Then he wrote, "Some legacies are quiet, but they leave space for others to follow." By evening, the clouds had broken open. Rain fell fast and hard, bouncing off the windows, flooding the curbs. Dot lay under the kitchen table, paws twitching in her sleep. Louis sat by the window, sketchbook in his lap, watching the garden disappear behind a curtain of water. He was not sad. Not exactly. Just still. Like the rooftop in the rain. Like a signal waiting to be picked up again. The next morning, when the storm passed, the air smelled like metal and lemons. Louis opened the window and breathed deep. From the stairwell came a soft sound: tap, tap, tap. Dot's tail. Always steady. Always waiting. He closed the notebook and followed it. Some things he would learn, you never leave behind. You just carry them higher. Part 9. The sound between the bars. Summer stretched long and golden across Brownsville. The kind of summer that melted the sidewalks by noon and made everything feel slow and endless. But for Louis, the days felt short. He had things to do. The garden needed water. Dot needed walks, and his sketchbook was filling fast. Drew every day now. Not for school, not for contests, just for himself. He drew Dot sniffing the lemon tree. He drew Virgil as he remembered him, watchful, weathered. He drew rooftops and bowls, wind chimes and shadows. Sometimes he drew the view from the rooftop, except different, wider, with more rooftops. Other kids, other dogs, like they were all connected, passing signals back and forth in the sky. Dot had taken to sleeping by the stairwell again. She did not bark at strangers anymore, only certain ones. Delivery trucks, slamming doors, a man who yelled too much into his phone. Louis started to trust her instincts more than his own. She knows things, Rosa said one morning as she packed tortillas into foil. Things you can Google. Louis grinned. She has got rooftop intuition. The second week of July, a woman showed up at the gate. Middle-aged, sun hat, blue scarf, clipboard in hand. She worked for the city, she said, Parks and Community Engagement. I read about the mural, and the rooftop dog. I wanted to see the garden. Louis let her in. Dot stayed close. The woman walked slowly. taking notes, snapping a few photos. She knelt by the lemon tree, smiled at the painted stone, read the plaque out loud. Then she turned to Louis. "Did you help create this space?" He shrugged. "I just take care of it. That is what creators do," she said. She pulled out a small envelope and handed it to an invitation. She explained, "Community Youth Voices Panel. We are selecting 5 young leaders to speak about public spaces and access. We would like you to be one of them." Louis opened the envelope. The event was in August, at the library downtown. "I am not good at speeches," he murmured. She smiled. "You do not have to be loud. Just honest." Louis did not tell anyone right away. Not Carlos, not his mom. But that night, he stood on the roof, Dot beside him, and read the letter again under the orange glow of the streetlights. "I do not think I belong at things like that," he whispered. Dot blinked slowly. "You think Virgil would be gone?" Dot did not answer, but she leaned into him just enough to say yes. A few days later, he went to visit Jordan. She was back at her cousin's, sitting on the curb with a box of colored pencils and a notebook covered in stickers. They did not say much, just drew side by side for a while. Eventually, she glanced at his sketch and said, "You are really good." Louise shrugged. "I just draw what I remember." Jordan nodded. "That is what all stories are." He showed her the invitation letter. She read it 3 times, then handed it back, her face serious. "You have to go." Louis hesitated. What would I even say? Start with the dog. The day of the panel, Louis wore the same shirt he would worn when he got the Virgil bowl clean, ironed, collar still a little crooked. Dot could not come, but Rosa brought a printed photo of her lying under the stairwell dish. She slipped it into his pocket before they left. "For courage," she said. The library auditorium was cold and quiet, full of folding chairs and not enough eye contact. When it was Louis's turn, he stood behind the wooden podium and looked out at the crowd. His hands shook a little, but then he pulled the photo from his pocket and set it on the podium. And suddenly, he was back on the roof, back in the silence, back where it had all begun. He cleared his throat. "My name is Louis Mendez. I am 10 years old. A year ago, I did not have internet at home, so I used to climb to the roof of our apartment building to do my homework. One day, a dog showed up. He did not belong to anyone. He did not bark or beg. He just sat beside me. Every day, I called him Virgil. He did not know about Wi-Fi. He did not care about homework. But he knew how to stay. When people saw a photo of us together, they helped. We got internet. They fixed the garden. They even made him the school mascot. But what I want to say is, the dog did not wait because of internet. He waited because I was alone. And maybe that is what a real signal is, not just a connection you pay for, but someone who sits beside you when you do not even ask." By the end, the room was silent. A woman dabbed her eyes. A man tapped something into his phone. Someone else whispered. He said it better than most adults could. Louis stepped down and took his seat. He did not smile. He did not have to. That night, back at home, he brought Dot to the rooftop. The sky was velvet blue. The city glowed below like a low-burning fire. Louis sat on the concrete, sketchbook open across his knees. Dot settled beside him, one ear up, one ear. And as the wind curled around them like a soft hand, Louis began to draw the night sky not as it was, but as he imagined it. Stars shaped like bowls, signals arcing across the clouds, dogs curled beside kids who needed them most. And beneath it all, rooftops stretching far as the page would allow. Part 10 Rooftop Signal. A year later, the mural faded slightly in the gym hallway. But the memory never did. Luis Mendez was now 11. Taller, sharper around the chin, a little more sure of his voice. Dot walked beside him most days. Older now herself, her fur fuller, her limp more noticeable when she was tired, but still loyal to the rhythm of stairs and rooftops. And Virgil. Virgil was still with him. Somehow, every time he passed the bowl mounted on the stairwell landing, every time he opened his sketchbook and touched the first drawing with his fingertips, every time he knelt at the base of the lemon tree and pulled the weeds without being asked, the garden had grown. Not just the tree now full of yellow fruit that bent its branches low, but the space around it. Community kids added planters. A muralist painted the back wall. Kids under stars. Bowls glowing with signal. Dogs curled in sleep. A carpenter donated a bench carved with the words, "Some signals never fade." Luis did not know who added that line, but he did not need to. That summer, Dot was named honorary helper at the summer reading program. She would curl up on the library rug while kids read books out loud to her, their small voices growing braver with each page. Luis would sit in the back, sketchbook open, recording them all. Dot in a crown of construction paper. A girl reading because of Winn-Dixie with tears in her voice. A little boy who could barely say library but held his book like treasure. It all went in the notebook. Every dog-eared memory. Every overlooked moment. Because Luis had learned something no textbook ever taught him. If you do not write it down, the world forgets. August arrived with thunderstorms and power outages. One night, after the lights flickered out across El Monte Vista, Luis climbed the fire escape with Dot following carefully behind. The whole neighborhood was dark except for the glow of candles and the soft light of phone screens. The sky above was thick with clouds. They sat in silence for a long time. No homework. No signal. Just presence. Dot rested her head on his foot. Luis tilted his face toward the sky. And that is when he realized something. The rooftop had not given him Wi-Fi. It had given him place. A corner of the world where he was allowed to be exactly who he was: quiet, loyal, observant, a boy with questions, a dog with answers. Later that fall, Luis stood beside the principal again as they gave out the second Virgil Bowl. The school had voted to name the garden program after him. 2 rooftop roots. They asked Luis to say a few words. He kept it short. Virgil did not have a collar, or a home, or even a name. At first, but he gave me what I needed. He stayed beside me. And because of that, I started to believe I was worth staying beside. The room was quiet. Then came the applause, soft, respectful, full of meaning. Afterward, Carlos bumped shoulders with him, still the dog boy. Luis grinned. Better than Wi-Fi wimp. Rosa shook her head with a laugh. You boys. That night, Luis drew one last picture for the notebook. A rooftop. One dog curled in sleep, one dog sitting beside a boy. A lemon tree growing impossibly through the concrete, its roots tangled with the stars. And in one corner, written in neat block letters, some connections do not need passwords. They just need time. On the final page, he added only this: in memory of Virgil, the dog who sat beside me when the world did not. And beneath that, in the tiniest letters he could manage, thank you. From the rooftop of Building 3, the city buzzed and blinked. Unaware, but in one small corner of Brownsville, a boy and a dog had rewritten the meaning of connection. Not with wires or passwords, but with presence, with patience, and with love, and the signal, still strong, still steady, still waiting for the next story. The end.